Hey, soul family. It's Crystal, Demon Slayer 144. Today is an amazing day. It's overcast, but the energy just feels so good. It feels as good as if it were a sparkly, beautiful, sunny day. I love it. So, as you see, I'm pretty casual right now. I actually have a house dress on. There's a reason for that. So I walked the dog this morning and I had a whole laundry list of stuff that I need to do. So I walked the dog, and as I got to a certain point walking the dog, I thought, oh, I better go home because I have all this stuff to do. And something said, you know what? Walk him a little more. The dog, and when I say something said, I mean spirit, God, the divine. Walk him a little more. It's okay. And I'm thinking, but I have so much to do. But I said, you know what? I'm going to follow that. So I walked them longer. And by the time I got home, I said, okay, now let me do this laundry list of stuff. Something said, what do you feel like doing? And I kind of thought, I really just feel like having a cup of coffee and just kind of, you know, taking a load off and relaxing for a minute. And I thought, oh, but I can't do that. I have so much to do. I better just make a quick breakfast and get to these chores, these things I have to do. So I looked in the refrigerator for the things that I wanted to make my omelet with, and I was out of two important ingredients, well, three. The onions, fresh onions, and jalapenos, and spinach. So I thought, oh, okay, I need to go to the store and go get it. Didn't feel like it, but I said, if I want to have this, I better go to the store. My husband was supposed to go to the store earlier to get some things he wanted while I was walking the dog. So I come to find out, he told me, oh no, I didn't go to the store because, I just wanted to make sure that you took so long walking the dog. I just wanted to make sure everything was okay, which was so sweet of him. And I was like, really? I said, okay, so you know what? Because normally when I send him to the store for something, he either forgets something or gets me something totally different. Bless his heart. So I said, but you know what? This time, you go to the store, get me, and I specified and wrote it down, these three things I need: this fresh spinach and fresh onions and fresh jalapeno peppers. And I also need some poultry seasoning. So he says, okay. So he goes out, and I thought, oh. I said, you know what? I'm going to go upstairs and start, I did a lot of laundry. I'm going to fold the clothes. So I go upstairs to fold the clothes, and I'm like, do I really feel like doing that? But I really should do it. I should, because I've got other stuff to do. And that voice said, look at that word should. Think about it. Should. You should. Why should you? Like, because I've got all this stuff to do with it. And the voice was like, do you really have to? Because do you feel like doing all that right now? Is this what you feel like doing? I was like, no, I'm really tired. I'm really tired. I'd prefer to kind of just make a good cup of coffee and sit down for a minute. So the voice said, well, why don't you do that? And I said, because I should. And that voice said, there's that word should again. Should. Think about that. And it came to me. I was like, wait a minute. I have been shooting all my life. I remember when I was little and my mom, she had, at the time, she had 4 kids. I'm a twin, and my twin brother died after 17 days of being alive. So she's got 4 children, and at 26 years old, my mom was the head psychiatric nurse at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Menlo Park, California. And my mom, typical Capricorn, was just a workaholic. Now, my dad was a machinist at Hewlett Packard. It's a computer company in Palo Alto, California. But of course, at the time, we couldn't live in Palo Alto because we were black and they didn't let black people live in Palo Alto. We had to live in East Palo Alto. But that's another story. Anywho, my dad, when he was sober, he was so fun. But when he wasn't sober, it was a bit of a nightmare. And my mom and dad were kind of in that typical relationship where, you know, you could be a career woman if you want to, but you're still going to have to take care of the kids pretty much. And, you know, except for when, because they work swing. My dad worked the graveyard shift and my mom worked the day shift so that they didn't have to have childcare. But other than taking care of us when he was at home, which was questionable at times, in my opinion, based on my experience. No shame and no blame, because you can't be where you are. You can't be anywhere than where you are in your evolution or, period. But my mom had to take on a lot of responsibility. So she had to get us up in the morning and get us all ready and feed us and get us to school and zoom off to work and take on, my mom had a staff of nurses and nursing assistants dealing with primarily, this was, between, 1966, our elementary school years. So this is like during the Vietnam War when a lot of the Vietnam vets were coming back to the VA and had a lot of drug issues and post-traumatic stress disorder and you name it, and so my mom had to do all that. So mom was pretty much like, you have to put your nose to the grindstone. You have to work. And if there's no way to see any respite, relaxation, or rest, or anything like that, so be it, because, you've got to work. And so she was on the clock. She was doing it. And she brought that home. That was her way. That was her thing. We could play if there was, in my experience, I don't know if my sisters and brothers have another perception. My perception is, and me being the eldest, if you can play if there's nothing that needs to be done, period. So if your room's not clean, if the house isn't together, for the most part it wasn't, but if the house, if you've got to clean something or whatever you have to do, you're going to get that done first. And that's okay. That's okay. And there wasn't a situation where, if we said, like, if mom was like, well, do this, that, and the other, and we go like, I really don't feel like it. Oh, you didn't want to do that. My mother was very much spare the rod, spoil the child. She probably put that in the Bible herself, if that's in the Bible. wherever that's written. So she was just, and I'm not blaming her for that, but it went from early childhood all the way up till teenagerhood, that if there's anything for you to do, you get that done first. I don't care how you feel, unless you're just really sick. If you're really sick, that's one thing. You're just where my mom was like, if I feel that you're physically fine, but if I feel like by now you should be over it, get to work. Do what you need to do. Do what should be done. Now, I am not saying that teaching your kids to be responsible and take care of business so they can grow up and be independent and they don't have to, depend on anybody else for everyday ways of taking care of their lives. I think that's a good thing. And I feel it's very important for parents to balance out the work and the responsibilities as much as possible with equal parts of play and rest and fun. A lot of people feel like, well, it's like early to bed, early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise. And there's so many rules. There's so many, like probably in the Bible, and Benjamin Franklin, and anybody who succeeds, they work hard. And there's times for you to take a vacation. There's times for you to do that. Okay, true. A lot of people will work extremely hard and then say, well, you know what? I won't rest. I'll even be a quote unquote workaholic until that vacation day comes. And then I'll just take a vacation then. But see, I didn't do that. From being little and reading in the Bible, like, I think Adam was cursed with eating the apple and from the tree of knowledge, cursed with, well, now you and all your generations are going to have to suffer through toil and struggle because you you disobeyed. So now you're going to have to suffer. You deserve that. Toil and struggle is your birthright. Now see, that's not the way I imagine it. Here's what I imagine. I imagine that Adam and Eve ate of the tree, the apple, the fruit from the tree of knowledge. And they were like, you know what? See, my throat keeps messing up. So I wonder who's trying to make it so I don't say this. So what I imagine is all that struggle and toil and strife and all that, eating from the tree of knowledge because now they know the truth. I imagine that when the false god told them, oh, you ate of the tree of knowledge and now you'll suffer toil and strife and struggle for the rest of your days, all that. I imagine they said, you know what? No, we won't, because now we know the truth. And we know that there's a season for everything. There's a time for everything. And if our inner being who we are, if our inner being, which is our direct source connection to God, not you, but false God, but within ourselves, that spark that is the true knowing in ourselves. So that part is telling us, no, we don't have to struggle when we don't feel like it. If we don't feel like it, if our body, if our mind is saying you need to rest, you need to take a break, you don't have to go out there and toil in the fields right now. What's your body telling you? Oh, my body's telling me I need to rest. Okay, because guess what? When you rest, when your body and your mind is telling you to rest, there's two things. One is saying, you know what, I'm feeling a little taxed. I'm a battery that doesn't have enough energy to do all these things you're telling me I should do. This body is telling me to rest. Because as we all know, if a battery is only at 10% and you try to get 11% out of it, you're going to drain the battery and then you won't get any percent out of it. Okay? So I imagine this is what Adam and Eve told this false god. No, we know we don't have to do that. We know that when we feel recharged again, mentally, physically, whatever, we'll get to that work. And guess what? We'll have enough energy, and having enough energy, we'll want to do it, and we'll do it well because we'll feel good to do it. And while we rest, we ease our mind, we ease our body. And guess what happens when we ease our mind and we ease our body? Then we get knowledge. We can tap into our dreams and our imagination, our desires, which are the basis for co-creation with the divine. Those dreams, those imaginations, the things that just make us feel good, that we love to think about. We may want those things. Those things could turn into our intention. Okay, I'm going to set the intention for these things. And then, of course, you add the faith and the trust. And there you co-creating with spirit, with the divine, with all there is. So it's a natural process. It's natural because what comes to you naturally is the truth. And it's what is the right thing for you to do. But when somebody tries to control you, which the demons do, they try to control you by telling you, no, you should do this. Even though you don't feel like it, they're telling you, no, because if you don't do this, then there's consequences. Then, they project, the demons, they project outer demons, which create inner demons, judgments. You're here like me. I'll hear my mom's voice telling me, well, if you don't do it now, it's not going to get done. Well, if you don't do it now, it's going to build up and get out of hand. And then you're going to have to put 20% or 50 or 100% more effort into it than you would have had if you would have done it now. So there's this pressing, this artificial, because it is artificial, but because this way of doing things has been so set into this fake matrix system as the way to do it. Oh, well, that's how Benjamin Franklin, and that's what Jesus said, maybe, or that's what your grandpa used to, fill in the blank, okay? Then that's what you should do. Now, see, I drank the Kool-Aid. Now, and I'm not blaming myself for doing it because I know that my mom meant well, and and she was taught that, and her grandparents, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And to the point of where, even if you have to sacrifice your own well-being and your own comfort, comfort is something sometimes you can't afford. You can always afford to work yourself to the bone, but comfort, that's something that's negotiable. No, it's not. No, it's not. You know why it's not? It's not negotiable because let's say you have a very stressful job. And it can be stressful for many reasons. It could be, you're a surgeon or you're a police officer or you're dealing with, you're a high school teacher, whatever. And based on your core beliefs, you may feel like, well, if I don't, as one of my clients, she was always anxious, stressed out, diagnosed with generalized anxiety, as was I, depression, all kind of stuff. And one of the things was, I'm just so stressed and I'm exhausted all the time. But these kids, they don't, this school system's so bad, and they don't get the resources, and they don't get what they should get. And we teachers can't even argue with the higher ups to get the kids what they need because there's just no money. And these kids are, low income, kids of color, they never get a break anyway. And if I don't skip my lunches and skip my breaks to give these, they're not going to get it, and I'm just not going to feel good about myself. So then you do this, based upon what is in your mind to do, what I say, what these demons are telling you that this is the best way to do it. You got to halfway kill yourself, be a workaholic, overproduce. Now, here you are coming to me because you're so stressed out that the only viable way that you're finding to relax is to overeat. And every time when you rest, you feel guilty. And you can't sleep. And you're finding that you're grouchy to where now your relationships are having problems. So now in addition to being a workaholic, because when you go back to school every day, these kids are still there with these problems. But you're going to be the one woman army to fix this whole thing because of you. Well, got to put your nose to the grindstone. Can't afford comfort. Can't afford comfort. Don't have time for it. That's a what do you call it? A pleasure that, it's not it's not necessary. Well, guess what? When you go that route of the overworking and everything like that, and then, well, my job is demanding. I have to. Because I feel good about myself. Okay, but then when after work every day, like myself, when I was a building inspector and overworking at times, and then mostly there were times especially when I got into management. Oh, I have to set an example for my employees. I mean, I was doing reports because sometimes I have to do reports to the city council or for my director to present to the city council. And at time when I was doing housing, I had to write a government housing report that was due, and I stayed at work overnight. Got to work at 8 o'clock that morning, and I didn't leave work till 8 o'clock the next day. But that's dedication. That's what. No wonder I was drinking like a fish. Drinking like a fish. because and eating. I got me into the addictions. And this is exactly what these demons want you to do. They want you to be exhausted, because when you're exhausted, you can't think right. Then you don't have control over your thoughts and feelings, and then it creates a hole in your energy field. And then not only can they control you through that, but then, of course, if someone wants to manipulate energies, which a lot of people call witchcraft, to control you or anything like that, there's this big hole that they could do that. And so people are like, well, instead of going within and fixing the problem, and the problem is I'm not balancing my work life and my rest time. I'm not recharging my batteries. It's easier to go, oh, you know what? Let me buy a protection candle. Let me, work a protection spell, or let me, let me count on somebody else to, if I bring a certain offering or something, they could just address whoever's doing it. No. You got to go within, and you got to close up that hole. But you're not going to close up that hole until you understand the truth. And let me tell you what the truth is. The truth is, and the demons, the archons, they don't want you to know this, because once you know this, then that's one less way that they can control you and keep you, and they can keep you tied in this matrix, so they can keep feeding off of you. The truth is, we should only be doing what we love to do. Because when we do what we love to do, then it doesn't feel like work. And when you're doing what you love to do, forget 8 hours, you can work 12 hours and still feel, full of energy. I mean, it's like me doing house cleaning. I hate house cleaning. But when I have good music on, I can get through that house cleaning, and I have energy. It just feels good. You may say, well, I'm stuck with the job I have, and I don't love it, but I have to do it. Okay. Put it out there to God, to Spirit, to Source. Bring me another job, a job that I love to do. Well, I don't know what I love to do. Okay, help me find out what I love to do, because all you have to do is ask. And the intent, I'm asking for this thing, I want this thing, the faith that it is coming, and the trust that the source that you're asking for it to get to you will bring it in the most correct, most perfect way. You don't have to worry about it, have anxiety about it. Once you give it to source, let it go. Let it go. It's called manifestation. I wish I could talk to all those, you see the stories about people in Japan who just, young people, and they're overworked, and some of them just, they don't have another life, and some of them die from it, overworking. This is what I should be doing. And then, what do they do to find relief? Because it's like, I need quick relief. It's alcohol or some addiction. It could be sex addiction, eating, drinking, drugs. When you get, my dog, he wants to come in. Now, I'm gonna let him in, but he better lay down. Hold on 1 second. If you come in, you have to lay down. Okay? Now look, you gotta lay down. You have got to lay down. Here's my dog. You gotta lay down. You gotta lay down. Are you gonna lay down or no? Lay down. You're not gonna lay down? Okay, you're gonna have to go. Are you gonna lay down? You're not gonna lay down? Okay, time to go. Excuse me. All right, get out. Okay, bye-bye. Good boy. I give him the choice. Anyway, so yeah, these young people in Japan and other places feel like they gotta just work, and just, and then, they dying and alcohol, being addicted and all kind of stuff. That is not our natural state of being, because guess what? First of all, when we're doing something we love to do, and even if we're not doing something we love to do, but when we take adequate rest, and you don't have to be like, oh, I'll just take the rest when I have a vacation. You don't have to do that. Make sure, at the very least, you take all your breaks and take your lunch. And see, that's another setup that, and we're supposed to feel grateful for this setup of, okay, you're supposed to work 8 hours a day and then have two 15-minute breaks and half an hour or an hour for lunch. Well, what if that's not enough? What if you need more time to rest? Okay? But you're supposed to feel grateful because, back in 1894, you couldn't even have that. You had to work a 12-hour day and you couldn't even have a break. That's all an archon demonic setup that was created so that the wealthiest, and I'm not saying all the wealthiest people and families are consciously working for the demons, but I'm saying that's a demonic setup, because in truth, first of all, we know how much internally, we know how much we're supposed to work and how much we're supposed to play. We know. Maybe we could get done what we need to do in 5 hours or 6 hours. Maybe we don't need 8 hours. Maybe we're enjoying what we're doing so much that we could do it in, we want to be there for 12 hours. Maybe that's good for us. Maybe we want to, but it should be what we want to do, what we want to do. What is it? In Spain or whatever, they have, 2-hour lunch or something like that. This is more of what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take care of us. The punch-in clock is supposed to be internal, but it was made external so someone else could control it, so they could work us like slaves, and then get all the rewards for it. And we're supposed to be happy, based on what the system says, in having, as long, I have a house and I have I can support 2.5 kids and a dog, and, have a yearly vacation, and maybe I can have a boat or a motorcycle. That's good living. That's good living if that's all you want. But what we want, the truth of it, is what we want, not what someone says is good for us. And hey, if you can achieve that, that's good. That's gravy. You've done it. So just think about that. Let me see. And I know I wrote a note, and I know I'm kind of going long, but and then people tell you, well, if you don't work a certain way, you're lazy. That was my mom's favorite thing. You're lazy. I used to get beat quite a bit for being lazy. No, you're not being lazy. You're resting, and you're giving yourself the space you need. You're giving yourself the time and the space and what you need to recharge your batteries, so then you can do the best work that you could do. Let's see what else. I think that might be all I want to talk about right now about that. Yeah. So I invite you to make it a priority to give yourself rest and relaxation, to have a balanced life. I'm inviting you to Get rid of the shoulds. When should comes up in your life, when should comes up in your mind, take space and look at that. Who's telling you you should? And what's on the other end of that should? Why should you? And why should you do it now? Who's controlling that? All right. Well, until next time.